So now we can divide this whole Bible into two sections. So this is the Bible. This section I will label as Old Testament. So if that's the case, what should I label this section? New Testament. And what does the word testament mean? What word? Old Testament, New Testament?
New Testament is Old Testament is consists of Deuteronomy, Leviticus, and also Torah.
Yeah. Okay, correct answer. So the word testament itself, though, what does it mean? Testament, I just want to make sure that because for some of you, English is, not your first language, maybe Bahasa Melayu is first language. Okay, so by testament, we mean, like when we say last will and testament means we are agreement and statement or whatever, right? So that means God, from the Christian point of view, they say Old Testament and New Testament because the Christians believe that God previously made some kind of an agreement or gave some kind of, there's a two-way, right? God gives you this command and says, I will take care of you. You do this, I'll give you Jannah. So that's a kind of a two-way agreement, right? You do this, you do this. So you agree, they're going to do this, okay, people say we accept. So that's a covenant. It's an agreement between. So we can say a testament or covenant. It's called by all these different names, right? So the Old Testament. Now Christians are calling it old because they believe that with Isa alayhi salam a new covenant, a new agreement was established, a new way of relating to God and getting His blessings and so on. You might believe that Jesus died for your sins and your sins are forgiven, something like this, okay? So you don't have to go through the same rules as the Old Testament. Jews do not call it Old Testament because they don't believe there's an old and new one. To them, there's just one book. So they will call it the Hebrew Bible. And they call it such because it's mostly written in Hebrew. Some parts are written in Aramaic, but most of it is written in Hebrew, so they call it the Hebrew Bible. And that Bible, I have to also, if I'm going to say Hebrew Bible, I have to also actually take away a piece there. I'll have to take away a piece there. And I will call that piece, so they can say, this is what the Christians will call Apocrypha. Apocrypha. Because that is not actually written in Hebrew, it was written in Greek. It was written in Greek. And when Christians would later on take it over, they took over the whole thing together with the Greek writings. Actually, there's a story behind this. You see, from the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek. And when the translators translated that Hebrew Bible into Greek, they added some books which were already in Greek language. So those books are called the Apocrypha. Because now, when Christians eventually want to get to the original Bible, they want to say, okay, where's the original Hebrew? So it didn't include these books which are in Greek. So they want just the original Hebrew. So they want to exclude this. So some say, no, we're going to hold on to it because it's been in the church. And some say, no, we're going to... it's difficult to see from a distance?
Yeah, Tony.
I see. Then come forward, brother.
How to spell Apocrypha?
Apocrypha. Apocrypha. So some wanted the original, which is only in Hebrew, and some said, okay, we're going to take it as it is because the church always had this. So that's why in the Catholic Bible, we have the whole thing. So we can say this is the Catholic Bible. Catholic Bible. Some Protestants embrace the same thing as well, but many Protestants exclude this. So we're going to put this is. Many Protestants exclude these. And there are 7 books. 7 books. Now these remaining books, I want my blue marker. It's not really mine, but I'll call it mine for today. Okay. All right. So these are 39 books. Oh, this doesn't work. And it's not blue anyway. It's got a blue cover, but it's red. Red. Oh, I've been holding the blue, no? Here, that's the blue. What's going on here? That's red. Anyway, I'll work with what I have. You used to have a blue one here. Yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, all right. Okay, so these are 39 books. And among these 39 books, the first 5 are called Torah. They're called Torah. Yeah. So they're also called Pentateuch in some commentaries. That's from, German scholars called it that because it means the same thing, 5 books. Yes. Yes, it's spelled like this. Okay, Pentateuch. Okay, so there are 5 books. Now, these are supposedly the Torah of Musa alayhi salam, but it also mentions the death of Musa alayhi salam at the end, so we know that at least that part was not written by him. So who wrote it, Allah knows, and then how much of that they wrote, we don't really know. Where was the starting point of the writing? So I'll write the names. Let's say we divide them up into 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll start here. So those are 5 books: Genesis, and Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Pentateuch. That's how they call it, yeah. Teuch, yeah. And then, so there are lots of other books here which are not of very much interest to Muslims, but there is one more.
Numbers.
Numbers, yeah. Numbers, Numbers. You feel free to use the back page of your handout, right? Any one of the handouts. Use it because it gives you a large sheet. You can write more easily. I see some people trying to cramp everything into a small notebook. So, yeah. Or use a 2-page spread in your notebook, right? 2-page spread. So, as I said, of the 39 books, many of them are of little interest to Muslims, but Muslims will want to know where is the Zabur of Dawud alayhi salam. The closest thing we have to that is what is referred to as the Psalms, because they say this is the Psalms of David. It's somewhere in between there somewhere. It's called Psalms, and this is a collection. It's one book. It's a collection of 150 individual songs. Yes. So these are like qasidas. Okay. Each one is like in the praise of God, or asking God for forgiveness, or something like this, or asking God for His help.
Yeah.
Right? Like dua, munajat.
Yeah, the Quran says he sings with birds and all. Prophet David.
Yeah, so that's Psalms. Although nowadays people will say that much of that is not written by Dawud alayhi salam, but nonetheless, I'm giving you the layout of the Bible. So how does this help you? It helps you in that you know where things fit. If somebody quotes Leviticus, you know what they're quoting from. If somebody says Deuteronomy, you know where that fits. You know what, you get a broad conception, historic and so on. So now, and then the Apocrypha, not in some Bibles, you know why. Now, we come to the New Testament. These are in all Christian Bibles nowadays, and there are 27 books.
Is Apocrypha is actually what?
I'll explain in a moment. The word Apocrypha can have two meanings. It can mean something that is away from scrutiny, in the sense that it is to be hidden, but it could also be that it was not scrutinized. So in either case, by giving it this name, Christians want to say, well, these books were not properly scrutinized for us to accept them as valid documents to define our faith, and in any case, it should be kept away from the people. So both ways the meaning works. These are Apocrypha. So each document will be called an apocryphal document. So this is one way in which Sheikh Didat used to tell them in a simple way that all Bibles are not the same, because some have it, some do not. 7 whole books are, he would say, thrown out. I wouldn't speak of it in that way. And in fact, what is mentioned in the Apocrypha is not really the things that we debate about. Hardly does anyone quote anything from the Apocrypha and say, well, look, you Muslims are not accepting something. Or hardly do we point to them and say, well, look, there's something here that you're not accepting. So it doesn't really come up in the Muslim-Christian debates. So I don't want to build more on it than is there, because like maybe an ordinary person might say, yeah, you have a point there, we don't have all the same Bibles, but a more educated one may say, well, what's the point? You know, so I don't want to make like weak points, even if they win the point for the moment, right? I want to make strong points.
39 books. The 7 is included in the 39.
39 plus 7 for 46.
Oh, okay. 39 plus 7.
Mm-hmm. So now, the 27 books, though, they're all agreed upon. And if I write this way, you will be looking that way. So I'm going to write this way. And that will also give me room to write more, okay? Because I myself, if I have to divide this into 27 lines, it won't be easy, right? So you know that there are 4 Gospels already, so I don't have to rewrite that. I'll just put here 4 Gospels. See, my job is easier still. I say here 4 Gospels. And after the 4 Gospels, we have a document that's described in your handout for today, which is called Acts of the Apostles. So who can tell me, in your own words, what is meant by Acts of the Apostles?
Story of the
Followers of Jesus.
story of the
Followers of Jesus, yeah. And what is meant by apostles technically? What's apostle? What's this word?
One who sent the messengers.
Yeah, one who is sent as a messenger. A messenger is an apostle. From the Greek apostello, which means I send out, apostello. So apostles, this idea goes back to the idea that Isa alayhi salam sends out his disciples and says, go and preach. So each one is an apostle. And then Paul claimed to be an apostle, and then he became like the chief apostle, writing all these documents and so on. So that's apostle. So Acts of the Apostles is a kind of chronicle of these are the disciples of Jesus, this is where they went and preached, and then Paul comes in the picture, and then he dominates the whole scene. Because once Paul comes in and he becomes prominent, the story shifts to him and away from all of the other disciples. This is how Christianity went. The other disciples receded, Paul rose to prominence and took over the scene, right?
Excuse me, Doc. Anybody that don't accept Paul in Christianity because he's the 13th disciple?
Yeah, I don't find any Christian like as one of the major Christian groups rejecting Paul, but there is a website. And the name of the website is Jesus Words Only. Jesus Words Only. That's something. And on that website, you will find articles that criticize Paul. And these are Christians, but they just want the words of Jesus alone, which will bring them close to Islam. But I haven't studied them that much, but I know that they have this. But I don't think we'll find a church somewhere where they reject Paul, because Paul's writings are so integral to the Bible, as we will see now on this chart, that it's hard for them to,
in my country.
Say again?
There is in my country.
Oh, there is?
Yes.
There are some people, Christians, who do not accept Paul?
There is some Christian who does not accept Paul. And when they criticize Paul, subhanAllah, it's very well equipped. They do not accept the writings of Paul, of Romans, 1 Corinthians. They accept only the four Gospels, as just only some partition of 1 John, 2 John, and 2 Peter. That's all. But
That's
other than
interesting.
that, they do not accept Paul.
And what are they called, like this denomination?
I forget, it is written in Hebrew, their denomination, and also they are proclaimed that they are the real Christian, because they do not use the word Jesus. Instead of Jesus, they are changing as Yeshua.
Yeshua.
Yeah, it is like a Messianic Christian group in the Philippines. They are absolutely rejecting Paul's teaching.
Okay, that's interesting. We should stay in contact and give me more information about that group, inshallah. That will help me too to know that this exists. Yeah.
Greek,
Yes.
Greek Bible.
Say again?
New Testament in Greek.
Yeah, so the New Testament is written in Greek. Yeah, and we have now English translations, but this is Greek. So this part was Hebrew, this part was Greek, this part also Greek. From here onwards is Greek. All right.
The original is in Greek, no?
Yes. Yeah. So now, after the Acts of the Apostles, we have letters of Paul.
Greek. Aramaic is what?
What is Greek?
Yeah, if you say Aramaic, Greek, yes.
Okay, Aramaic and Hebrew are basically the same language. Aramaic is an offshoot of Hebrew, and it's more like a spoken form of Hebrew. Yeah. So Greek is a different language altogether. Greek is the language of the Romans. Yeah. Okay. So. And Greek is still spoken in Greece today, but not the same as it expressed in the New Testament. It has evolved over time. So those who want to study the New Testament in the original language, they go to seminary school and they study that language as a specific language that nobody converses in. It has similarities with Greek as spoken today in Greece. But it's a very specific language. Just like, Arabic language, you have the classical Arabic, which is the Quranic Arabic, and you have the spoken Arabic in Algeria, in Morocco, in Egypt, in Syria, and the Arabic from one country to another varies, right? So that's the spoken language. So the spoken language of today and the official Greek of today is different from the Greek of the New Testament. The Greek of the New Testament is called Koine Greek, and that's a specific one that you have to study by going to seminary school just for the purpose of reading and studying the New Testament. So after the Acts of the Apostles, we have letters of Paul. And I should actually give it a lot of space here, because that becomes dominant now. There are 14 letters of Paul. So, but in order to give space here so you can see, I'm not going to go very low here, so you can see. I'm gonna pretend that we don't have to do that, and I'll say there are 14 letters of Paul. Well, 13 letters that bear his name. And we have Hebrews, which is an anonymous document. It doesn't bear the name of its author. And not necessarily in this order. We have James, which is supposed to be written by one of the brothers of Jesus. We have 2 letters of Peter. We have another letter of Jude, who is supposedly a brother or a relative of Jesus. It's not so clear, was he a brother or not, brother of Jesus? But all of these are like, names attributed to these documents later. The scholars do not hold that these are the original writers whose names are now associated with these. Then we have 3 letters of John. And some think that traditionally the Christians would have said that this is the same John who is the author of what? John's Gospel, right? This Gospel. But nowadays this is highly disputed, and it is thought that this is written by somebody else. It's not so very clear who wrote this. So now we should be up to 26. Let me see if we have here. So we have 4, 5, and 13, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, and 326. The one last one that remains now is the book of what? Revelation, or it's also called the Apocalypse. Apocalypse means like the Qiyamah. This is for them, right? So because it talks about the last things, what will eventually happen, Qiyamah will come. This is Revelation. So this is our 27th book. Now, curiously enough, this book called Revelation, this is the only one which starts by saying that this is a revelation from God. Yeah. Now you have to remember that each one of these documents were written on a separate scroll. This is why I put these gospels like on separate scrolls like this. Initially, each was written on a separate scroll, not in a book form, and sent to various parts of the empire. People were reading it and copying it and so on, right? So Revelation itself, written on a separate scroll. It's the only one that claims to be a revelation from God.
This is the revelation. It starts with the...
Yeah, it starts by saying this is the revelation from God to John, the presbyter or something like this, John on the island of Patmos. And ironically, it was the last book for Christians to be convinced about, for them to include it in their Bibles. For some years they were disputing with each other. Should we include that book? Should we include that one? Some said include this one. Some said no, this one we're not sure about. All right. So eventually they included more and more books in the 3rd century, and then it was in the 5th century that the Eastern Church accepted the book of Revelation, because for a long time people are thinking, no, this does not belong in the Bible. And even though now it's in the Bible, a lot of Christians find great difficulty with it, because this revelation, which this writer says he saw, it's in like a vision that he sees. And a lot of things are symbolic. And the figures that represent different things are like figures with many eyes or many wings and so on. So it's hard to imagine these things, and many modern Christians have great difficulty with that. The greatest difficulty they have is how it depicts God as being very wrathful. He's sending a lot of punishment. It's like he has bowls of pestilence that he's sending out. And he's pouring them out into this town and that town and so on. And the towns are named. And then Jesus himself is represented in a way that when he comes back, he will have a sword coming out of his mouth. And he will use that to slay his enemies. So this is the end time that they're looking forward to. And sometimes when we have discussions about whether Islam is a religion of peace or not, and compared with Christianity, I say let's limit the discussion to the Quran and the Bible. Because if you talk about Islam, we're going to go all over the place. There are going to be hadiths, there are going to be sayings of Muslim scholars, there are going to be some book of fiqh about how to wage jihad, what are the rules of jihad, and so on. So it'll be too much to cover. So we stick with the Quran. Then, by comparison, the Bible. So when we compare the two books, how does Isa alayhi salam appear in the Quran? Peaceful individual. وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيَّ يَوْمَ وُلِدْتُ وَيَوْمَ أَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ أُبْعَثُ حَيًّا. Peace be upon me the day I was born, the day I die, and the day I shall be raised alive. So all about peace. In the Bible now, in the book of Revelation, chapter 14, Isa alayhi salam comes back. He has this sword coming out of his mouth, and he uses it to slay his enemies. He's wading in the blood of his enemies. And he sits elsewhere it says that Isa alayhi salam quoted a saying, God said to this figure, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. And now this applies to Jesus. Christians are saying he is the one that God is making his enemies his footstool. What does it mean, make my enemies? When you sit, when some kings, they want to show their power, they sit on their throne, they rest their feet on a stool, right? A poof, ottoman, something like this. Now, if you see some depictions of some Hindu deities, especially Lakshmi, Lakshmi holds a skull in one hand, and if you look at the floor, there are others, right? So, especially when she appears as Durga, which is supposed to be a fierce form of it's not Lakshmi but Parvati, right? Lakshmi is supposed to...
No, yang suka makan budak-budak. Apa?
Anyhow, let's not let's not get delayed. But there is a Hindu deity that is depicted like this, right? In a fierce form, Kali. Yeah. Okay. So this is Parvati in different forms, right? Okay. And Lakshmi is a peaceful one, right? That's the wife of Vishnu. Vishnu, Parvati, Shiva, Lakshmi. Shiva, Parvati. I got them mixed up. I have to revise Hinduism now. Okay. But nonetheless, the point I want to make is that there is a depiction where, if you're depicting a fierce guy, then he's there as a king, he's sitting on his throne, and he's resting his feet on the backs of his enemies. Right? His enemies are all slain and on the floor, and he rises, like he's going to walk all over them. And he's showing his power, right? He's going to walk all over them. He's going to go sit on his throne. Then he rests his feet right on his enemies right there. So that's the end of the war. So this is a depiction of Isa alayhi salam, that he comes back, he slays his enemies, and wades in the blood of his enemies. Not a very good picture in the minds of many Christians. So they have difficulty with this book. So now you know the books, and you know where to find things. If you go to the end of the book of Revelation, you see that in the last judgment, the books will be opened of people's deeds, and they will be judged according to what is written in the books, of their books of deeds. So now our Christian friends tell us, you're not going to be judged according to your deeds. Go to the book of Revelation. And they say, okay, but Isa alayhi salam was so peaceful. So, okay, will that be up to the end? Because if he's not peaceful to the end, if the end game is different, then that is what, matters, right? If a guy is peaceful all the time, but in the end game, he's not peaceful anymore.
The end is ulterior.
The end is?
The ulterior.
Yes. Or whatever, yes. That's the ultimate. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالْخَوَاتِيمِ. The Arabic hadith says the actions are according to what is the last of them, right? So now you know where things are situated, what is what in the Bible. So if somebody's quoting something, you know what. If you have any questions, ask me now. Otherwise, we'll quickly break up into groups so that you can do the role playing. Talk to each other and practice this information which you have now mastered. And master it even further. Polish now your discussion. Yeah.
James version and all that, where does it?
So King James Version of the Bible, what does that mean?
Yeah.
That means a Bible that was translated in England in the year 1611, published in the year 1611, under King James, who was the king at the time. So it's called the King James Version of the Bible because it was done under his aegis. Almost like we might refer to a Quran as the King Fahd Quran because it's printed under that from that publishing house.
Bible, are you referring to just the 4 books or what? What do you mean?
Bible means this whole thing. Bible means this whole thing.
Oh, that means everything that's inside the whole
Yeah.
thing is being translated
Yeah.
into English.
Into English, yes. Okay, I'll come to you, yes, my sister.
What was the chapter for you will be judged by your good deeds?
I'll look it up and maybe during the break or something like that, then I'll tell you. Okay, my brother, yes.
Is Tanakh the Hebrew Bible?
Yes, so we said that the Jews will not call their book an Old Testament. They will call it Hebrew Bible, but as my brother is pointing out, they will also refer to as the Tanakh. So this whole thing, they will call the Tanakh. Tanakh. So what is this? This is not a real word. It is an acronym. Tanakh. So this is an acronym. So they start with T for Torah. T for Torah. N for Nabi'im. This is prophets. And KH, this is for Ketubim, the books or writings. Right? So Torah, prophets, writings. The 3 sections. They section it into 3 different bodies of literature. Okay, so that's good. Thank you. The red one I'll need, and I'll put away this red one.
How about Talmud? Talmud commentary.
Okay, Talmud is a commentary on the Bible. And it's 2 stages of commentary. After the Bible, they wrote a commentary. Then they wrote a commentary on the commentary. So the commentary on the commentary is called Talmud. The commentary itself is called Mishnah. Mishnah. And you know the word Mathna occurs in the Quran, Mathna, which is related to 2.
Yeah.
Thani is second.
Yeah.
So Mathna is 2, related to 2. So Mishnah is the Hebrew cognate. It means a kind of a second law. So you have the Torah, which is the first, and the Mishnah, which is a kind of a second law or secondary book of law, in that it is a commentary on the original book. And then the Talmud. Talmud has to do with tilmiz. Tilmiz is student, right? So Talmud is their way of saying that this is like written by the students of the Torah. Yes. Yeah?
Old Testament is it?
Second?
Old Testament. That Talmud is the commentary of Old Testament.
Old Testament, yes. So because these are Jews, they're not concerned with this Christian portion here, New Testament, and they're commenting on the Hebrew Bible. They're not commenting on the Apocrypha. So the Mishnah is actually the Mishnah Torah. So the second Torah. So it's a commentary on the Torah, not on the whole book. They have in the Talmud commentaries on some other books, But the Mishnah itself is on the Torah, and the Talmud is a commentary on the Torah's commentary, plus commentaries on other books as well. Okay, now I want to take my brother's question here, and then I break you up into groups. Yes? But you had a question? You asked it already. Okay, we're done. All right, Hajj Abdul Rahman.
There are 39 books under Old Testament.
Yeah.
So you got 5 already, you got the names. The other 34.
It'll be too much and hardly of very much use in our discussions. But the curious student should go and find out more. How would you know more? If you open a copy of the Bible, first couple of pages it will have a list of contents. The list of contents will start with Genesis, go to Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, and so on. So you see all the names there. Right? And
Psalms of David is just one, right?
yes,
Okay.
Psalms of David just one.
There are actually others that makes up the 39 altogether. I mean, there are 5, 6, so that
Six.
means there's 6, 9,
33 more, yes. Yes. Okay? So, now I want you to role play. So, the way we're going to do that, we're going to break up into groups of 2. So, on the sister side, we have it easily separated here. We have 2 in a row, 2, except that Mariam is a third. But Mariam, can you join these 2? And then that will be a group, okay? So, maybe you can pull up your chair to that side or something like that, or... Oh, you guys gonna turn around? Okay, superb. All right. So then, one of you pretends to be the Muslim. Well, you don't have to pretend to be a Muslim, but and you shouldn't pretend to be a Muslim. But one of you takes the role of the Muslim in that discussion. The other one takes the role of the Christian, right?
Prayer break? No prayer break?
Huh?
Prayer break.
Prayer break. They said at 5. When we break at 5, we're gonna pray at that time. Okay. So go ahead and start practicing, and then we switch roles. For about a couple of minutes, you go that way, and then you switch roles. Okay, among the brothers, so Hajj Abdul Rahman, you're alone. You're going to join with Fauzi, and then we have 2 brothers here, yes, you 2, and then we have 2 and 2, yeah? You 2 are going to practice. You 2 are going to practice. Are you going to, Brother Muhammad 1, you're going to practice? Okay, go ahead, practice. Brother Hanan, are you practicing? You're working, or you somebody's with you? Irfan, you're going to practice? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Okay, sure. Okay, you don't mind. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right.
Play role. Dua lah. Kali first one of us is
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Yeah, I mean, reasonably.
Whatever we have covered only, or
No, anything that now you feel that the Christian will answer, but it will be good if we stick to the things that we discussed during this workshop. So it's a practice based on what we discussed here. So both of us are on the same page. Like, you all know the same information, you're just practicing it, right? Okay.
so there are 5.
Lalu